Hi Cat, my name's Simon, I'm the CEO of ImageBrief.
Simon, tell us, what is ImageBrief and what does it do?
It's a marketplace, it's a platform, and there's two distinct value propositions we have. One for buyers, which is advertising agencies, publishers and brands that want to source fresh, authentic content from photographers that's not currently indexed or online. We reckon there's about somewhere between about 8.5 billion images that are not indexed and online. And all the brands and agencies are fed up with cheesy stock imagery. And it's very hard to get local imagery. So if you're here in Queensland, for example, you need shots for a campaign, or if you're in London, Vodafone, or whatever it might be, we can source that content. For the photographers, buyers post requests out to those photographers for content. So you could be a photographer that's sitting on the beach in Hawaii, and you could get a brief that's come in from an ad agency in London that's looking for pictures of the beach in Hawaii, or we can source, hyper-local content. The value for the photographer is basically that we're delivering work to them, which is the only platform in the web that does that. We pay them double the commission, and in essence what we're doing is we're helping photographers monetize idle assets. So that is time and content that they've already created.
Like many good ideas, now that we know that exists, it's obvious, but it obviously wasn't then. What sparked the idea for ImageBrief?
We ran a stock library that was a traditional stock photo library where you use search index and tags. And we found a lot of our buyers kept sending us emails with paragraph descriptions of what they were looking for. So we realized that what would happen was we'd send that request to a photographer that we knew might have the shot, and they know their catalogs, right? And they'd say, we've got that. They'd send it to us and we'd send it on to the customer. We thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we could scale that globally? So that was the first part. The second part was we set up a LinkedIn group for photo editors, because we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could create like this watering hole where photo editors and art directors and creative directors could talk to each other, and we could get in and pose questions and just find more about what challenges they were facing. And actually a lady called Laurie posted a request in our LinkedIn group and said, is there anywhere where I can post a request out to a professional network of photographers? And we were like, it's so obvious. That idea of being able to post out requests to pro photographers to help them monetize idle assets lived with me for about 7 months, and it hurt. I just had to do something about it.
So step us through the business journey to date. What were some of the big milestones along the journey?
Significant milestones for us from ideation, I sit there and I think, wouldn't that be brilliant, through to actually getting it up and running. We were lucky in that we'd met two engineers with our previous business. We took the idea to them. We didn't have the money to fund it. So we said to them, we'll go 50-50, you build it, we'll sell it. We ended up building the Starship Enterprise, and it had bells and whistles and all this kind of stuff hanging off. So in hindsight, we'd have been a lot leaner about what we built, but we ended up building a product that was enough for us to go and validate. I was still working a full-time job at the time, and so this was evenings, weekends, lunch breaks. We got it to a point where we could push it live. And we had photographers registering within the first 10-15 minutes. We'd put it in the LinkedIn group and it was like ding, ding, ding. And we were just like, we're millionaires, we're millionaires. We had no idea what the road ahead was. But that was really exciting, seeing all these photographers come on. So we knew immediately there was a demand on the photographer side. And then the day we pushed it live to buyers, within an hour we had a brief come on and she doesn't know that she was the first briefer, but her name is Sky, and she worked at Saatchi & Saatchi. And it was for an aerial shot of Dubai. We had no photographers in Dubai, like most of our photographers in Australia. So we were on the phone, literally searching for photographers in Dubai to try and find somebody that might have these aerial shots. And so it was all, a friend of mine gave me this funny quote: everyone likes a trip to the butcher's, but no one likes to see how the sausages are being made, right? So the time period for that was about a year. From having the idea, convincing them to come on board, our co-founders, to building it, to getting it live, was about a year.
I was struck earlier when we talked about some of the connections that you'd made in the early days. Can you speak into that a little bit more? Why were personal connections so important to the growth of the business?
Every single meeting that we had in Silicon Valley and in New York came from introductions that were made here in Australia. Every meeting. Like, I can look back and trace the dots back to a core group of 3 or 4 Aussie entrepreneurs that had helped us. So they were critical, because without the people that we met through Innovation Bay, which was the first kind of pitch event that we did, we wouldn't have raised the money and we wouldn't be there now.
Simon, can you tell us about the assets and successful elements of the Australian startup ecosystem?
One thing is, if you're building a digital business, the product is everything. Okay, so the user experience is everything. The retention is everything. You can test that. There's a big enough market to test that and validate that in Australia. You don't need to go on a plane to validate that, right? So we didn't really know that. Like, we did a lot of door knocking, but we would book in flights within 6 months of launching because we thought we needed to be there. There's enough here. The second thing is engineering talent is so hard to find overseas. It's like there should just be more emphasis put on building remote engineering hubs in Australia. Talent's here, it's a nicer place to live. You've got beaches. You know, when I meet engineers in New York, they say, can you send me to Sydney, which is quite funny, right? But we can't find engineers in New York to work in New York, because they're either setting up their own businesses, they're being poached by Facebook or Google. We can't afford to pay that kind of money. So there's a lot of companies in the portfolio of the VC that's just funding us that have hybrid geographical teams where they've got engineers in Tel Aviv or in Buenos Aires, or there should be in Australia. Like, there's no reason why there shouldn't be these kind of plug-in hubs of development. And so I think that if we could, we would hire and just continue to build an engineering team here in Australia.